Welcome to What the Frac. We are your fractional team, and today we break down marketing trends, strategies, and tactics in 30 minutes or less so that you can do the fun stuff like be creative.
Hi, welcome back, Tamara.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you and our special guest today.
Yeah, Guy Barretta. It's so wonderful to have you. I'm really excited about this conversation because Tamara and I, as you know, started this podcast, this show to talk about fractional because of how important it is. And Guy is joining us today to talk more about fractional COO for small businesses. He is the president of Beretta Consulting. He serves as a fractional COO to small businesses with a concentration on service industries, especially real estate brokerages and real estate franchises. He brings over 25 years of experience in executive management, having worked with startups, large Fortune 500 companies, pro tech firms. He serves as an advisor on all of those, and he is the author of Sunday Conversations with the COO Guy on LinkedIn. So you may know his face, you may know his tips. Guy, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it, and I know what you guys do, and you're awesome at it. And thank you for allowing me to be a guest today on this beautiful Thursday here in the Northeast.
Well, I think it's really fun talking to a COO, right? Like it's a little bit different, it mixes it up. We've had another COO on the show, and like the tidbits that we get are fantastic. So this is going to be fun. And I know you have kind of a specialty or something that you really like to work on, which is exit strategy, right? Because that's something that's often overlooked by founders when they start their company, small business owners, when they start their company, they aren't necessarily thinking about that, but it really should be something that's on the roadmap, because at any point, someone is going to want to exit their company. And in order to build, you've got to build right in order to have that set up right. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on how a business owner should go about thinking about this and strategizing for it?
When a business owner, to your point, if they get into the aspect of franchise business, entrepreneurial business, and they're that entrepreneur, they really need to take a step back and kind of do some business planning, right? So I say that dreaded word, business planning. Many business owners do not like to do business planning, but it's really important to put that business plan together, put it in place to follow your strategic vision. And if you're following your strategic vision almost to a T, you're going to get to that point where an exit strategy or a succession plan comes into place. So really everything that you're doing on the day-to-day and for the year and for your 2-3 year plan should be focused on where do you want to see the business end up? What is your ultimate goal? And if your ultimate goal is to exit and have a succession plan, make sure you're doing everything in your power that your business has the highest return on investment should you sell the business or move out of the business. So I think everything that you do really comes back to that. It's all encompassing really. And I've worked with business owners and I said, well, my succession plan is my children. Okay, great. What's your plan B? And they say, what do you mean, what's my plan B? I said, well, your children are 10 or 11 years old. There's no guarantee they're going to want to get into your business. So what's your plan B? And my father had a plan A. So my father was an entrepreneur. His plan A was that my sister and I were not getting into the business. He sent us to college so we didn't get into the business. But my dad didn't have a plan B. My dad never exited his business. His exit was when he died, right? So when he died, the business died. And I just try to keep people top of mind of that when I'm working with them, that don't be like my dad, really focus on what you can do to have something that, when you're ready to sell, it's something that you can live off. The proceeds is something that you can live off of and enjoy your retirement.
I come from an entrepreneurial small business background. My parents were the very same way, where they were like, my retirement is the business. It's you guys, me and my brother, right? That's my retirement. And so I think so many business owners are at that spot where they have worked really hard to grow what they've grown, but they're not really thinking to the future. And that's kind of how I got into fractional, which is realizing that people in this space, which is a space I'm very passionate about, were not thinking big picture. They were thinking in the weeds. They were thinking day to day, right? And so I guess my question to you is, can you explain to everyone how you feel fractional, especially COO, but fractionals in general fit into the small business landscape?
I think they're essential. And the reason being is the previous company I came out of, when I came out of that company as the chief operating officer, I realized there's a need in the industry for small, medium-sized businesses to have that right-hand person. Many small businesses don't have that person that is like their go-to, the person that can step up to the business owner and say, time out, you're doing it wrong. This is the way we have to do it, because they're salaried employees and they're sometimes afraid to challenge the individual who's paying their salary. As a fractional, we're coming in at a more equitable cost, which is so important for small and medium-sized businesses when they're worried every single day about cash flow and what their P&L states and what their balance sheet says. We're coming in at a fraction of the cost, and we can have those tougher conversations. I do a SWOT analysis. I do a value assessment. I ask them, like, what keeps you up at night? Who's challenging you? And it can't always be me, right? You'll hire me for a set period of time. It could be a couple months, could be a year, could be 2 years. But the goal of my role is to get you to the point where you've grown so much where you say, Guy, guess what? I've outgrown you. That's awesome. Now you have a COO, and maybe you could put an executive team together that's really your go-to and someone that you could bounce ideas off of. Because let's face it, as a business owner and a small business owner at that, who are you really bouncing ideas off of? Yeah, maybe you're bouncing them off your spouse or your significant other or your kids, but you're not, if you own an auto body shop, you're not going across the street to talk to the guy that owns the local pharmacy about how he's doing something. Maybe you're going to the Chamber of Commerce, but what are you really getting out of the Chamber of Commerce? A lot of times the Chamber of Commerce aren't even, the industry leaders. They're just employees of companies, right? So I think that's where fractional really comes into play. And whether it's a fractional CTO, a fractional CFO, or fractional CMO, fractional COO, we as an industry, as a fractional industry, see the need that we can bring to the table to help elevate the companies that we work with.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we feel the same way, right? Like, this is kind of the mission of the show, is we know that small business owners are overwhelmed and overloaded, and they should know that there's help available, right? And it doesn't have to be full time. That these resources should be leveraged and utilized. I'm curious about something that you said, which is, the struggles and the challenges that small business owners are having. As a COO going into a lot of small businesses, what is the main thing that you're seeing right now as a challenge, and what are the tools that you're equipping them with in order to overcome it?
A lot of it comes down to automation on the back end. How can they automate more to be the better version of themselves? Like, if I automate X and Y, will it lead to an outcome of Z and free up more time for myself to focus on other avenues of the business? But I think both of you hit the nail on the head. They get stuck in the weeds. They wake up and put out fires day after day after day. And one of the first things I do is say, let's look at your calendar. And if you could choose 1 hour during that week where you could focus on the business, whether it's, strategy, building a business plan, looking for potential growth opportunities, when can you fit that hour in? And we try to hold to that hour. Are we always successful? No, but I think that's the most important, is trying to pull somebody out from the day-to-day to see what's going on from like 35,000 feet within the business, right? Because we don't see that sometimes. And so that's the biggest challenge, right? And they have a hard time delegating. I think that's another challenge. They know better than everybody. But the reality is, if you're a small business owner, you don't, as much as you think you know everything about everything, you don't know as much as you think you know. And a perfect example is I was talking to a friend of mine who's a small business owner, and he's got a lot of trucks on the road. And I said, so you think you know, but what if one of your trucks gets a flat tire? Do you even know what tires are on your truck? That's number one. And number two, if you had to go out and change that tire, would you know how to do it? He said, well, no, I wouldn't know. See, you don't know everything you need to know about your business because there's so much to know. And that's where other experts can come in and really, maybe there's a tire expert out there. I don't know. That's a COO, but the reality is you need to surround yourself with people that know the answers to those questions.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, is that bringing an executive team in doesn't mean that you're necessarily giving up all the control, right? It just means, this started for us because we both came from marketing and communications, and everyone out there who has an Instagram account now thinks they're a marketer. But what they realize, especially small business owners, is that when they start to get into the weeds of marketing, there's so many things that they don't even know to even ask, let alone to do. And so that's when they start to get into trouble. They start to feel like they're overwhelmed. Every day is just more tasks. Their to-do list never goes away. They can't go on vacation. The company doesn't run without them, right? All these things that we hear from small business owners. And so what we here try to say is, like, we're not going to make you an expert. We're not going to teach you how to become a marketing expert, but we're going to teach you how to think in an executive way, in a big picture way. So, when you talk to a fractional COO or a fractional CMO, what questions to ask, how to talk through things with them, how to get out of your business from a weeds perspective. But here's where I'm wondering, because this is something I run into all the time. I come into a new business and they're always apologizing for all the fires that we're putting out I'm honestly, I tell them, when you bring me in, it's probably because you need the help, right? You're probably putting out fires. We're going to be firefighters for 2 months now. And as we start to implement, but what we find is that we get stuck sometimes in those fires, right? We get stuck not being able to implement the next thing, not being able to see through the smoke as to like how this process is going to help us in the future. How do you get business owners, especially small business owners who are used to being the number one bottleneck, we'll call them, how do you get them out of that mindset and into a bigger picture mindset?
So my last or 2 articles prior for the COO, the Sunday Conversations with the COO Guy, was just about that. Like you are what's causing your business not to grow as the business owner. And I know that's terrible to say because nobody thinks that about themselves, but sometimes it really is becoming more hands-on, right? So I will get more hands-on and say, look, we want to implement this process, or we're looking to add this tool or tech. I'm going to handle that. You focus on what you need to focus on, and let's pivot, and we'll come back and, I'll tell you what we implemented, how we put it in, and you'll give me your feedback and I'll re-implement it, and then we'll introduce it. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more hands-on. I tell business owners all the time that, it's important to get individuals in your business, in your company that can tell it like it is. So sometimes they surround themselves with, so a perfect example is I'm potentially working with a company who has a hiccup going on. They just improved their sales process, but the manufacturing component is not keeping up now with the sales team, and the sales team is getting upset with the manufacturing team. And the first question I asked is, how long has all the employees been there? And he said, well, the sales team's, been there probably the youngest overall. The people that are working the shifts have been there the longest. I said, well, is there an operations person? Yes. How long has that person been there? 20 years. Okay, that's your bottleneck. She's been waking up every day, coming in to avoid fires, but she's never implemented new strategies to get the company to move beyond what they currently can process. And it's not a question of her being bad at her job. It's just what she knows. And on the operations side, I say there's 2 types of COOs. There's the operations individual who wants to come in and really change things up and and really build processes and get them to the next level. Probably more of a risk taker. And then there's the other type of COO says, I'm coming in just to make sure everything is static and everything works perfectly. And if there's a little fire here, I'll put that out. But they're not really innovating within your organization. So sometimes it comes down to like, what is the best use of your COO or your right-hand person?
Tamara, I think that you're on the same page as me on this, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a perfect example of what's the difference between a fractional executive and a consultant, where a consultant, I think people get confused on this, where a consultant is really coming in, looking at everything from, outside the company and really giving recommendations, whereas a fractional is really coming in and becoming part and like integrating themselves into your company. They might be the ones that are like setting those processes into the wild. They may be ones that are implementing. They may be just standing at your side and telling you how to kind of move. That depends on you, but they're really integrating. That's how I feel the big difference between, and there's spots for both. I'm not saying consultants are bad. I'm just saying that is how I would kind of differentiate the two. And as we're going into an industry like fractional that's fairly new and people don't know, I want that to be really front of mind, because I feel like there's a lot of consultants out there right now who are charging for fractional and doing consultant work because they know that it's a trendy word right now in the business world. So do you feel the same thing, Tamara, about that?
Yeah, I mean, 100% I feel the same way. But I want to add to that, because what I got stuck on in the conversation is something that I've been thinking a lot about, which is how to ask questions and how the way you ask questions, especially as a fractional, someone coming in helping, like that is such a critical thing to question and challenge when you come in. And if you're a small business owner or someone who's working with a fractional, you should want them to be asking questions and not just doing what you ask them to do, right? Like, I think if you're to get your money's worth, you don't want someone to just be like, yes, I'll do exactly what you ask of me, right? You need to have someone who comes in and who is really just going through thoroughly and asking good questions to get to the root of the problem.
I just had a situation with this, Tamara, where I was working with one of my CEOs, and we got into a little bit of a heated disagreement about how to proceed on something. And afterwards, and we were fine. Afterwards, I turned around and I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I probably should have cut it off at a certain point, but I know that you pay me to tell you how it's supposed to be. And I don't want to be the person who just yeses you. And she was like, oh no, absolutely. Like, you need to do that. Like, I need that pushback. And so as long as it's done from a respectful way, like, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's what actually helps. And I just think it's so critical. And I think it's a really lost. It's something that doesn't happen as often as it should. So I'm just glad that you said that. And again, it just made me start thinking about the importance of that and how, and working with people. But yeah, I'm curious. I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about automation. And I think, one of the big struggles is time management, which you mentioned. How do you help people get more time back? That's the most valuable thing, right? Time is the only thing that you can't save.
True.
So how do you help people? Like, you've mentioned that is one of the most critical things. How do you get CEOs and get these small business owners to leverage their time in the most efficient way so that they can kind of reclaim what they should be doing, which is, thinking big and strategizing?
That's a great question. And I think it starts with asking the right questions, right? So, one of the first questions I ask of anybody that I'm working with is, so if I look at your organization right now, who has your back? And no one does. Most times most times there's a pause, and they'll tell you about an employee that they really trust, but that employee doesn't necessarily have their back. So, I position it that, hey, I'm going to have your back. I'm going to focus on what I need to focus on so that you can focus, and then we can kind of meet in the middle or have a quick 20-minute conversation, or, this is what I'm working on. So I was on a call this morning with, one of my one of the clients I'm working with, and I specifically, implemented a new technology into the company. He says, where are we at with that? And that's a great question, right? Because I said, we got A, B, C, and D done. I'm finishing up E, F, G, H, and I. And once that's done, we're going to get, we'll have it rolled out for everybody. But I just appreciate it because he knows it's getting done. So now he can focus on what he needs to focus on. And it's just a question of taking ownership, really. And that isn't easy for some small business owners to kind of give up that ownership of anything, right? Because they're so used to being the person that has to clean the windows and, process payroll and maybe clean the garbage, or, depending on the size of the company, their job title is everything. But, they have to have that feeling of belief that they can give up, something so that they can gain somewhere else, which is that time. And one thing that you mentioned earlier is, because we were talking like the difference between fractional and consulting, like obviously there's sometimes that we, all of us in the fractional community take on what I would call a consulting opportunity, right? Where it's like a 2-month project, right? But we know that's not the best use of us. It's probably not, we can solve for it, but it's probably not the best use. And that's the biggest challenge, is that so many people in the industries, if you look at it, the industries that I work with, everybody's a consultant. They just want to get the project done and get out. And I said, they're not investing in you. They're just trying to do what they need to do and then move on to the next person. Whereas I think as fractionals, we're invested. We're your trusted advisor. We're your business partner. We're a fractional COO. We're the person that talks you off the ledge. Sometimes we're your therapist, right? We are what you need at that given time in the growth and maturity of your company.
Yeah. And a lot of times you're actually like, you're responsible. You have to answer, right? Like you put that on your LinkedIn. You could be doing interviews for the company, right? Like it's just more than a consultant. You also have to answer to stuff.
Exactly right.
Yeah. KPIs, all of those pieces. You're part of that board. I know that the big difference that the way I always explain it too, is that a consultant's going to talk about you like you're their client, and a fractional is going to talk about your company like it's their own. Like more than often, I'm always saying about my clients' companies, I'm like, oh, so we're doing this, we're doing that, we're growing at this speed, and I'm using language like that because I truly believe I'm invested, like you said, in that company. So I think most small business owners are going to listen to this and be like, Guy, this is wonderful. Love all the tips, but I am way in over my head. Like, where do I even start thinking about this and thinking about bringing someone in?
Wow. How do you answer that question, right? I think they have to do a little bit of introspection, right? And where are they in their business life? And, what does it mean? And, if they want to grow, what does that mean? You can't have external growth if your internal aspects of your business are just all over the place, right? There's internal growth and there's external growth. So if you're looking to grow your business externally, whether it's getting new clients, moving into new markets, doing, other aspects of the business, internally, you really need to focus and make sure everything's perfect there so that you have a process in place. So I would say, yes, you're in over your head, but when you go to bed at night and you lay your head on the pillow, there's probably one thing that keeps on coming back. There's one issue that's always coming back, that's keeping you up. So let's focus on that issue first, as long as it's business related, and then go from there. And then it should be a natural progression to, you can't hit all for companies that have what they perceive as many issues, you can't hit all the issues at once. You kind of got to go boom, 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 boom down the line. But it really starts with that one that's really keeping you up at night.
Tamara, I know that we love to talk full business and we love to talk COO, and our COOs that come on are our like biggest watched episodes because people are so interested. But I'm curious about how real estate brokerages and franchises, how did you get into that? And what is different in the real estate industry versus every other, small business out there?
So I started I started in real estate in 2005, and I was a real estate agent, in the commercial space in New York City. From there, I transitioned into a couple of prop tech companies, which you mentioned earlier. Thank you for the nice intro, by the way. I really appreciate that. And then from the prop tech companies, I wound up with a Fortune 500 company called Anywhere Real Estate that owns all these real estate brands. So they own Coldwell Banker, they own Century 21, ERA, Better Homes and Gardens, Sotheby's, Corcoran. And I was there in an executive capacity for several years, and then transitioned out and actually ran one of their brokerages as the chief operating officer. So real estate and franchising were one and the same, because all those real estate brands were franchising or franchisees. What I enjoyed about my business is that I was going in to markets where it might be Guy Barretta Real Estate or XYZ Realty, and I was showing that real estate broker owner another way to do business that may lead to the growth that they're seeking. We may be the solution, we may not be, but at least I had the opportunity to present that to them. And I love that. I loved having that ground level conversation with broker owners. And the same thing with franchising. When you look at franchising and franchisees are typically first-time entrepreneurs, not always, but they're the person that just came out of corporate America. They're a business owner for the first time. Excuse me. They align themselves with a national brand, and they're excited for the tools, tech, and the branding. But that franchisor is not there to help them in their day-to-day business. They're giving them tools and tech, but you're still responsible for running a business. And if you were the person that comes out of corporate America where everybody told you what to do every day, which most corporate America, that's what they do, and now you're responsible for telling others what to do every day, it's a big dynamic shift. And that's where I come into play to help them, kind of right the ship, try to figure out where they need to be.
That's so impressive. I love when there's a good niche, right? And you can tackle a problem that people have in a specific area. I'm curious. So if there was advice that you could give to a small business owner right now, based on the experience that you've been having, what would it be?
So I think the first thing is to really focus on what you can control, right? We want to try to run everything, and you just focus on what makes your business awesome and what makes your business unique, and try to clear out the noise. There's a lot of noise right now. I mean, it's, they probably are, we laugh, we hear about AI every single day. I'm sure they're hearing about AI every day. It's just, all right, AI is great, but just clear the noise and worry about, how to take your business from point A to point B, and kind of take a step back and focus on yourself, and take that 1 hour a week. Start with 1 hour and just say, have the door shut in your company saying, this is 1 hour for me. No one's allowed to walk in, and focus on what you need to focus to build that strategy for your business going forward. And start thinking about a succession plan. Start thinking about, what does it mean in 20 years, 10 years, 30 years, however long you want to go to walk away from your business.
I think that there's a lot of studies too. What you're saying is it sounds so simple. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll put it on my calendar and never actually get to it. I think that there's a lot of studies that I've read about how keeping promises, even with yourself, right? You put that hour on your calendar. It's a non-negotiable. You actually sit down and do it. Even if you don't do anything in that hour, but sit in your office and think about things, right? You're keeping that promise to yourself. You're actually putting a priority on your list, and it'll eventually pay off in the long run, not just in the work that's getting done, but also in the mental state that you're in the, motivational piece. And so I think that's a really important tip, even though it's very simple. It's a very important tip that everyone should be thinking about.
When I started time blocking my calendar, it changed my life.
Yeah. It's amazing. And, I do some presentations from here and there. And one of the presentations I do on is about how to avoid burnout, right? Once you're burned down in your business, you don't love your business anymore. And I think I could hear it in our voices from talking with the two of you today, is that we are working with some individuals that are kind of burnt out from their business. They don't love their business anymore. And so that's probably another piece of advice, is how do we get you back to loving what you do?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so often we're like, hey, this is how it has to happen based on how someone else has done it, or based on a goal that society has said is successful. And what I try to do with my entrepreneurs that I work with is get them back to like what is truly successful to them. I think that that's the number one way to avoid burnout, is to make sure that everything you're doing in your day is getting you to whatever that looks like. Because it's like the old adage that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's hard to get to that if you could be working in the industry you love, but you're not working towards a goal you love, or maybe you hate managing hundreds of people, but your goal is to be a $10 million company. Well, you're going to have to manage people in order to be a $10 million company. Maybe we need to reevaluate why you want that goal, right? So I think that that's a really important part. And I feel like some of these topics are topics that you handle in your Sunday conversations on LinkedIn. Tell me a little bit. I'm going to do some market research here, Guy. Okay. All right. Tell us a little bit about it. And I want to know what the number one red topic is on your Sunday conversations.
Surprisingly, it's the most recent one. So I started Sunday conversations with the COO Guy back in November. I was working with a wonderful woman who is in PR, and she said, you should really put something out on LinkedIn. So I started doing that, and it just started resonating, right? I got to close to 1,000 subscribers pretty quickly. And so my most recent one, and I really talk about like, what is a fractional COO and what does a COO mean to your business? And, how do we affect your business life, essentially. But the most recent, this past Sunday, I did something unique last week. I went into ChatGPT, which is always on my desktop. I'm sure it is for the both of you. And I said, based on what I've asked you to do for my business, what can you tell me about me? It was a very interesting, like ChatGPT is like, you're so focused and you're heavily focused on strategy and operations and being a leader in the companies that you serve. And you really believe in collateral material and really believe in putting processes in place. And it hit me. It nailed it. I mean, kudos to AI, right? And so I put that out there, most recently, and people really took to that. Like they're like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And hopefully some other individuals are doing that. But I think it's good to see how you're perceived by others, even though it's not an other, right? Well, maybe it is another, but I thought it was an interesting exercise to do.
I think being self-aware, Tamara, right? Have you, I think being a fractional has made me had to sit back and be like, oh man, okay, I'm really self-aware about this right now, about myself. I don't know about you, Tamara.
Well, when I was a reporter, I had to Google myself all the time, right? So I've always made it a practice to try and reflect on myself, how I'm working with people, and the processes that I have in place. And this is another topic for another day. I love doing stuff like that. I love working with coaches. I love working, looking at personality types. It's so interesting and usually how kind of spot on they are. But I didn't know that AI is going to be doing that for me soon and telling me based on my activity, how I behave and what type of productivity I have. So that's great. But I was going to say, based on hearing that, so people need to subscribe to your newsletter, follow you on LinkedIn. How else can people get in touch with you?
So they could always reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm Guy Barretta, GUYBARRETTA. My email is Guy Barretta, GUYBARRETTA at thecooguy.com. So that's my tagline. I'm the COO guy, right? And I want to talk to individuals that, feel that I could be a benefit to them and have deep conversations and see where we can help them succeed in their business and move them forward.
Amazing. Well, Tamara, if people aren't subscribed to us, where can they find us?
Oh my goodness. Well, our YouTube is on fire right now. So subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can watch all of our episodes as well. Find us on LinkedIn. Give us a DM. We'd love to hear from you. We've got our newsletters. And of course, all the traditional social medias. We'd love to chat with you. And so with that, we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Good seeing everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.